The sound of string quartet music drifted through the tall wooden doors of the Whitmore estate, and I stood on the stone steps holding my daughter's hand, staring at the brass door handle like it was the entrance to a world I no longer belonged in. Lily squeezed my fingers. She was 7 years old and wearing the pale yellow dress we had spent 3 weeks picking out together, the one she called her flower princess dress, because it had tiny embroidered daisies along the hem. She had asked me 4 times that morning if her hair looked pretty. I had told her 4 times that it looked perfect. "Mommy," she said, tilting her face up toward me. "Why are we standing outside?" I didn't have an answer for her, not one that made any sense. 20 minutes earlier, my phone had buzzed with a text from my mother. I had been in the car with Lily and my husband Marcus, pulling into the long gravel driveway of the Whitmore estate, where my sister Claire's rehearsal dinner was being held. The text said, "Don't come in through the main entrance. Actually, I need to talk to you before you come in at all. Call me." I had called. She hadn't picked up. I called again. Nothing. So Marcus parked the car, and the 3 of us walked up to the front door, and I knocked. The door had opened not to my mother or my sister, but to my sister's future mother-in-law, a thin woman named Diane who had the kind of smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Oh," Diane said, and there was something in that single syllable, a flicker of discomfort, quickly smoothed over that made my stomach drop. "You must be Claire's sister." "I am," I said. "We're a little early, I think." "Is Claire?" "Let me get your mother," Diane said, and disappeared back into the warmth of the house, leaving the door only halfway open. I could see past the threshold into the foyer. Candles everywhere, white roses in tall crystal vases, the faint sound of guests laughing, the smell of something wonderful coming from the kitchen. And there, just visible at the end of the hallway, a cluster of women in coordinated dusty rose dresses, the bridal party glasses of champagne in hand. I recognized every single one of them. My sister's best friends from college, her sorority sisters, her coworker Ashley. And standing in the center of all of them, radiant in a white satin robe, was Claire. She saw me at the door. For a half second, something crossed her face. Not happiness. Not the relief of seeing her older sister before the biggest weekend of her life. Something that looked more like irritation. Then my mother appeared in the hallway, walking quickly, pulling the door almost completely shut behind her as she stepped out onto the stone steps with us. "Sarah," she said. Her voice was controlled, the voice she used when she was managing a situation. "I'm glad you're here. There's been a small mix-up with the seating and the guest list, and I think tonight might just be a little..." "A little what?" Marcus said from behind me. His voice was calm, but I knew my husband, and that was his careful calm, the kind that meant he was paying very close attention. My mother looked at him briefly, then back at me. "I think tonight is really just meant to be the immediate wedding party and the 2 families. Very intimate. And there isn't a seat for you. For she glanced down at Lily, and her eyes did something complicated, for the little one." Lily looked up at my mother. "Grandma, am I not doing the flowers anymore?" My mother crouched down to Lily's level. "Sweetheart, that might have changed just a tiny bit." "What do you mean it changed?" My voice came out sharper than I intended. "She's been the flower girl for 6 months. We bought the dress. She's been practicing how to walk down the aisle. She knows the song. Claire decided she wanted the flower girl to match the bridal party color scheme," my mother said, standing back up. "Diane's granddaughter is 5, and she has the right coloring, and it just what?" I said. "It just made more sense to cut out your own granddaughter without telling anyone?" "Sarah, please keep your voice down." "I am keeping my voice down. I was. Barely. You couldn't have called me before we drove 40 minutes? Before Lily put on her flower princess dress?" My mother's expression shifted, then not into guilt, but into something that looked almost like relief that this conversation was finally happening. Like she had been waiting for permission to say the things she actually meant. "Claire is very stressed," she said. "This weekend needs to be perfect for her. And honestly, Sarah, you know how things get when you're around. There's always some kind of tension, and Claire doesn't need that right now. She really doesn't." I stood very still. Behind me, Marcus put his hand on my shoulder. He didn't say anything yet. He was letting me take the lead. That was the thing about Marcus. He never steamrolled, never stepped in front of me, but he was always exactly there when I needed him to be. "She doesn't need tension," I repeated. "You know what I mean." "I know exactly what you mean," I said. And I did. I had known for years, actually. I just kept hoping I was wrong. Claire was 4 years younger than me. She was the beautiful one, the social one, the one who had never had to try very hard for anything because things had always simply arrived for her. a full scholarship to a school she barely applied to, a boyfriend who proposed after 8 months, parents who had paid for her apartment until she was 26 and called it helping her get established. I had paid my own way through nursing school, working double shifts on weekends. I had bought my own car, rented my own apartments, built my own life from scratch. My parents called that being independent, and they said it with pride, but the pride had always felt like an alibi. "We're going to go," I said. "Sarah, tell Claire congratulations from us." I turned to Lily, crouching down in front of her the way my mother had, but I held both of her small hands in mine and I looked her straight in her eyes. "Hey, you want to go get waffles? The place with the strawberries and the little chocolate chips on top?" Lily studied my face for a moment with the terrifying perceptiveness of a 7-year-old who understands more than adults want her to. "Are you sad, Mommy?" "I'm okay, Bug. Are you okay?" She thought about it with great seriousness. "I practiced the walk a lot." "I know you did. You were going to be amazing. Can we still get the waffles?" "Absolutely, yes." Marcus took her hand and we walked back down the stone steps toward the car. I didn't look back at my mother. I didn't look back at the door. I kept my eyes forward and my jaw set, and I told myself, I was fine, I was fine, I was completely fine, until we reached the car, and I sat down in the passenger seat, and Marcus started the engine, and Lily climbed into the back and buckled herself in, and then I put my face in my hands and pressed hard against my eyes until I saw colors. "Hey," Marcus said quietly. He put the car in reverse, but didn't move yet, just sat there with me. "She cut Lily," I said. The words came out strange, thick. She cut her own niece from the flower girl role and didn't even have the decency to call. "I know." And my mother stood there defending it. "I know. Claire has never done anything for Lily. Not a card on her birthday, not a single." I stopped. Breathed. Okay. I'm done. I'm done talking about it. "You don't have to be done." "I am for now." I dropped my hands and looked at the house through the windshield. The warm lights inside. The music. A shadow moving past one of the tall windows. "Let's just get out of here." We were almost to the end of the long driveway, gravel crunching under the tires, when Lily said from the back seat, "Mommy, does Aunt Claire not like me?" I turned around to look at her. She was looking out the window at the darkening fields along the road, her yellow dress bright against the gray evening. "Aunt Claire likes you very much," I said. "Then why did she give my flower job to a different girl?" Sometimes grown-ups make decisions that don't have anything to do with how much they like someone. "It's not about you, Bug. It's never about you." "Okay," she said, in the way children say okay when they don't fully believe you but have decided to trust you anyway. She was quiet for a moment. "I'm still going to wear the dress to get waffles." "Wear it absolutely everywhere," Marcus said. "That dress deserves to see the world." She giggled. I turned back around, and Marcus found my hand on the center console and held it, and I stared out at the road ahead. And I was not fine, not even a little bit, but I was holding it together, and that was enough for right now. We had been driving for 11 minutes when my phone rang. I looked at the screen. My father. I almost didn't answer. My father had been at the estate. He had been there the whole time, presumably, and he hadn't come to the door. He hadn't sent a single message. Whatever he had to say right now, I wasn't sure I had the bandwidth to hear it. Marcus glanced at the screen, then at me. "Up to you," he said. I answered, "Sarah." My father's voice was different than I expected. Not apologetic, not the carefully neutral tone he used when he was trying not to take sides. He sounded tight, almost controlled anger, actually. "Where are you right now?" "On the road home." "Why? How far?" I looked up at the passing street signs. Probably 10 minutes out. "Dad, what?" "Turn around," he said. "Right now. Turn around and come back." "Dad, I'm not after what just happened. I'm not going to walk back in there and pretend everything is fine for Claire's." "Sarah." His voice cut through mine, not loud but absolute. "I need you to come back to this house. This is not about Claire's rehearsal dinner. Just, please, trust me." And turn the car around. I looked at Marcus. Marcus looked at me. Something in my father's voice that controlled, barely contained tone made the hair on my arm stand up. "Okay," I said. "We're coming back." I ended the call. "Turn around," I told Marcus. He didn't ask why. He found a spot to make a U-turn and headed back the way we came. Lily, who had been in the middle of an elaborate story she was telling to her stuffed rabbit, looked up and noticed the reversal of direction. "Are we going back to the party?" "We're going back to see Grandpa," I said. "Oh," she considered this. "Will there be waffles there?" "Probably not at this particular location, But I promise we will find waffles tonight. Okay. She went back to her rabbit. My father was waiting outside when we pulled back up the driveway. He wasn't standing on the stone steps, he was down at the base of them, at the edge of the gravel, like he had been watching for our headlights. He looked older to me in that moment than he usually did. Taller, somehow, and also heavier, in the way that people look when they are carrying something they have been carrying for a long time. I got out of the car. Marcus followed. Lily scrambled out behind him and immediately ran to my father with no hesitation at all, the way she always did, and he caught her and lifted her and held her in a way that made something in my chest seize up. "Hey there, flower princess," he said into her hair. He held her for a moment, then set her down. "Marcus, would you mind taking this one to look at the garden around back? I think there are fireflies starting up." "Fireflies?" Lily gasped, as if this was the most magnificent development in human history. "Big ones," my father said. Marcus took Lily's hand with a look at me that said, "I'm right here," and they disappeared around the side of the building. My father and I stood there in the gravel in the quiet. The music from inside was muffled now. Someone laughed, sharp and bright, behind the windows. "I owe you an apology," he said. "Dad." "No, let me finish." He held up one hand. "I was in the kitchen when your mother went to the door. I heard what happened. I heard everything she said to you." He paused. "I didn't come out. I didn't say anything. I told myself it wasn't the moment to cause a scene, that Claire's weekend would be disrupted, that I would talk to your mother later." He looked at me directly, and his eyes were doing something I hadn't seen in them very often. "That was cowardice. And you and Lily deserved better from me tonight." "I appreciate you saying that," I said. "And I meant it, even though it also felt like arriving with an umbrella after you were already soaked." "There's something else," he said. He reached into the inside pocket of his jacket and took out his phone. He turned the screen toward me. It was a text message from Claire, sent at 11:47 that morning, 6 hours before the rehearsal dinner, while I had been getting Lily's hair done and putting on the dress and driving across town to get here on time. The message was to my mother, and my father had apparently been copied on it, or forwarded it, or something. I would piece together the details later. What mattered was what it said. "Mom, can you please handle the Sarah situation before tonight? I just don't want to deal with the drama. Tell her the dinner is family only or the venue changed or whatever. Just make sure she doesn't show up. I can't have her making everything about herself when this is supposed to be about me. Also, please make sure she doesn't bring the kid because Diane already confirmed Ella for Flower Girl and it'll just be awkward." I read it twice. The Sarah situation. I was a situation to be handled. I was something my sister had texted about with the same casual logistics as confirming a catering order. "She planned this," I said. "Not a question. This wasn't a last-minute thing. She decided this morning and had Mom run interference." "Yes," my father said. "And Mom she did it. She just did what Claire asked." "Your mother has been running interference for Claire for 30 years, he said. Tonight was not an anomaly. He put the phone back in his jacket. "I want you to come inside." "Dad, I really don't think." "I need you to come inside," he said again. "Not for Claire. Not for your mother. I need you to come inside because there are things that need to be said in front of everyone, and I am not willing to let this pass the way I have let too many other things pass." He looked at me with an expression that was both exhausted and resolute, like a man who had finally decided to put down a very heavy object he had been carrying uphill for far too long. "Can you trust me?" I thought about Lily asking if her aunt liked her. I thought about the drive home in the dark, her yellow dress bright in the back seat. I thought about 3 weeks of shopping for that dress, and 4 times she asked if her hair looked pretty, and the way she said, "I practiced the walk a lot," in a voice that didn't complain, just stated a fact, just said the truest thing she knew. "Yes," I said. "I trust you." He nodded once and led me up the stone steps and pushed open the tall wooden door. The foyer hit me immediately. The warmth, the candles, the sound of 20 or 30 people mid-conversation, the pop of a champagne bottle somewhere in the next room. A few heads turned when we entered. A few people smiled vaguely in the way people smile at strangers at parties. My mother appeared from the left side of the room almost instantly. Her face when she saw me was a quick, complex sequence surprise, then alarm, then the gathering of composure. "Robert," she said to my father, the word clipped and pointed. "What are you?" "I'd like everyone's attention, please," my father said. Not loudly, not with performance, just clearly, in the voice of a man who was used to being listened to when it mattered. The conversations nearest to us quieted, then the conversations beyond those. In the way of parties, Silence rippled outward from its source, until the string quartet, noticing the shift, trailed off mid-phrase. In the hush, I could hear my own heartbeat. My sister appeared in the archway between the foyer and the main dining room. She was still in her white satin robe. Her hair was pinned in an elaborate updo. She held a champagne flute at her side, and her face, when she saw me standing next to our father, did something I had never seen it do before. It went completely still. "Dad," she said, "what is she doing here?" "She's here," my father said, "because she belongs here. Because she is my daughter. Because I should have opened this door myself 3 hours ago." Claire's jaw tightened. "Tonight is not the time. I know you think that. I know you texted your mother that you wanted the Sarah situation handled." He said the phrase with a quietness that was somehow louder than volume. "I know you planned this morning to have her turned away from the door. And I know that your mother, as she has done consistently for most of your adult life, did exactly what you asked without question." The silence in the room had a texture to it now. The kind that means no one is breathing quite right. Claire looked at our mother. Our mother looked at the floor. "This family has a pattern," my father continued, "and I have been part of that pattern by staying quiet. By deciding it wasn't the right moment. By telling myself the uncomfortable things could wait." He paused. What I did not know, until very recently, is how much the uncomfortable things had been allowed to accumulate. From the back of the room, I saw Claire's fiancé Daniel standing very still near the fireplace, watching my father with an expression I couldn't quite read. "I had a conversation this afternoon," my father said, "with my attorney. I want to be direct about what has changed, because I think directness is the thing this family has been most lacking." My mother's head came up. Something in her expression shifted from shame to a different kind of attention entirely. "The trust documents I set up 8 years ago are being revised. Effective immediately, the primary beneficiary is being changed." He looked at Claire, and his voice stayed even. And I think that evenness was the hardest thing I had ever watched him do. "I love you. That doesn't change. But love doesn't mean unlimited protection from consequences. And I have been confusing the two for a very long time." "You cannot be serious," my mother said, her voice low. "Robert, tonight of all nights." "Yes," he said, "tonight. Because if not tonight, it would have been some other night, after some other incident, and there would always be a reason it wasn't the right moment." He turned to me. "I'm sorry for what happened at this door. I'm sorry it happened in front of Lily. I'm sorry I didn't come out sooner. I had promised myself on the walk up the steps that I would keep it together. I had a decent record of keeping it together in front of people, a skill I had developed out of pure survival necessity over years of being the daughter who was expected to be fine with things. I was not keeping it together right now. Not sobbing, not making a scene, I want to be clear about that. But my eyes were doing what eyes do when they have been holding something for a long time and the pressure suddenly releases. And I couldn't stop them, and I stopped trying. "Thank you," I said. That was all. It was the only thing I could find. My mother said something sharp to my father, something about timing and decency and everything she had sacrificed. Claire set her champagne glass down on a side table with a precise, controlled click and looked at me with an expression I could not quite categorize. Anger, yes, but underneath it, something more complicated, something that looked almost like recognition. Diane, Claire's future mother-in-law, had materialized near the archway and was watching the entire room with the careful focus of a person rapidly recalculating. I looked at my father. "Where's Marcus? Where's Lily?" "Garden door, that way," he said, pointing toward a hallway to the right. I went. The garden behind the Whitmore estate was dark and cool and smelled like wet grass in early summer. String lights had been hung between the old oak trees for the evening, and they swayed slightly in a small breeze. Marcus was crouched near the stone wall at the far edge of the garden with Lily beside him, both of them very still, faces tipped toward something in the grass. I walked across the lawn toward them. Marcus heard me coming and looked up. "She found 4, he said quietly. "4 what?" "Fireflies." He stood, and Lily stayed crouched, her face inches from the grass, watching with total concentration. I stood next to Marcus and he looked at me, really looked at me, the way he always did, reading whatever was written on my face without me having to say a word. "Okay?" he asked. My dad changed the trust. A beat of silence. "In front of everyone?" "In front of everyone." Marcus exhaled slowly. "Okay," he apologized. To me. I watched Lily cup her hands around something in the grass, then open her fingers and watch the firefly lift away. He said he should have come to the door earlier. He should have. I know. I leaned into Marcus's shoulder. But he did come, eventually. From inside the house, faintly, we could hear the elevated sound of my mother's voice, then Claire's voice, higher and more jagged. Then nothing for a while. Then a door. Lily finally stood up and turned around, and her face in the string-like glow was luminous with satisfaction. "I held one," she announced. "I held a firefly and it didn't even bite me." "Fireflies don't bite," I said. "I know. I wasn't scared," she said with dignity. "I was just being careful." Marcus laughed, a real one, low and warm. I pulled Lily toward me and pressed my face into the top of her head, into her hair, and held her for a moment. "Mommy," she said, muffled against my shoulder, "can we get waffles now? I think I've done enough garden." "Yeah," I said. "Let's get waffles." We said goodbye to my father on the steps. He held Lily again and told her she was the bravest flower princess he had ever met, which she accepted with enormous seriousness. He told Marcus it was good to see him. He looked at me one more time with those older, heavier eyes, and I saw in them not just regret but something else. The beginning, maybe, of a different kind of honesty between us. "I'll call you this week," he said. "I'll answer," I said. Claire did not come to the door. We found a waffle place 20 minutes down the road, the kind with paper menus and mismatched chairs and a chalkboard specials board. Lily got strawberry waffles with chocolate chips and whipped cream and ate them with focused, methodical joy. Marcus got the blueberry stack and gave me half without being asked because he knew I would want it but wouldn't order it myself. We sat in that small restaurant in the humming fluorescent light, the three of us, and outside the window, the town went about its Friday evening. People walking dogs, a couple arguing softly outside a bar, a teenager on a bike, and I thought about the Whitmore estate and the string quartet and the champagne and my sister in her white satin robe, and I felt something that wasn't satisfaction exactly, and wasn't relief exactly, but was something quieter than both of those things. My father called 2 days later, as he said he would. He told me that the conversation with the attorney had actually started 3 weeks before the rehearsal dinner, that he had been watching things accumulate for longer than any of us knew. The text he showed me that night was, as he put it, the last clear piece of evidence he needed to confirm what he had already been privately coming to terms with. The trust changes were real, and they were finalized. The house my grandparents had left to my parents, a property I had always been told would be split equally between Claire and me, had been in steady, informal transition toward Claire for years, my parents quietly treating it as her inheritance without ever making it official. My father reversed that. He also told me something I hadn't known, that my grandmother's pearl necklace, the one that had supposedly been lost in a move years ago, had been given to Claire. My mother had quietly arranged this without telling anyone. When confronted, my mother said she had assumed Claire would treasure it more. I thought about that for a long time. Marcus and I drove up to see my father alone without the kids, without my mother 3 weeks later. We sat on the back porch of his office downtown, and he told me things he had never told me before, about the years I was in nursing school working doubles, about decisions that had been made on my behalf without my knowledge, about the way my self-sufficiency had been used as justification for withholding. He didn't perform the apology. He just stated the facts in the same quiet, direct way he had at the estate, and he let me respond however I needed to respond. And when I got angry, and I did get angry, sitting on that back porch in the afternoon sun, he didn't manage it or smooth it over. He just let me be angry. That, I think, was the thing I had waited longest to be allowed to do. The pearl necklace came to me by mail 6 weeks after the rehearsal dinner. No note, just the necklace, in the small velvet box my grandmother had always kept it in, wrapped in plain brown paper with my name on the front. I put it on for the first time standing at the bathroom mirror on a Tuesday morning before work. Nothing special about the day, no occasion. It sat at my collarbone the way it had sat at my grandmother's collarbone in every old photograph I'd ever seen of her. Lily came in while I was still looking at it. She stopped in the doorway, in her pajamas, hair wrecked from sleep. "Mommy, you look fancy." "It was my grandma's," I said. "Your great-grandmother." Lily stepped closer and looked at the necklace with great seriousness. She reached out one small finger and touched one of the pearls very carefully, then pulled her hand back. "It's pretty," she said. Then, with her signature efficiency, for moving from one subject to the next, "Can I have cereal with the little marshmallows?" "Yes," I said. "Go start the bowl. I'll be right there." She disappeared down the hallway, feet thundering on the hardwood in a way that seemed impossible for someone who weighed 52 pounds. I looked at myself in the mirror for one more moment. At the necklace, at my own face. Then I went to go make breakfast. Claire's wedding happened in September. My father attended. My mother attended. Marcus and I did not. We sent a card, because whatever I thought of my sister, I believed in being decent, and also because not sending a card would have required energy I wasn't interested in spending. She texted me 6 months later. It was a long text, the kind that clearly took multiple drafts and multiple days, and it said things like, "I know I wasn't fair to you, and I think I've been protecting myself from feeling like I needed to compete, and I'm not asking you to forget it. I just wanted you to know." It was not a perfect text. It left out several things it probably should have included. But it was real, in a way that surprised me. I sat with it for 4 days before I responded. When I did, I kept it short. I said I appreciated her sending it. I said I wasn't ready to act like none of it happened. I said maybe there was a version of a relationship we could build eventually, but it would have to be something new, not a return to the old one. She responded with just, "I understand. I'll wait." I don't know what any of that becomes. I genuinely don't know if the space between us will ever close into something comfortable, something that feels like sisters in the way I used to imagine when we were small. The world is full of possibilities I've learned not to pre-decide. What I know is this. The night